Good evening and welcome to parents, teachers, tutor center partners, partner schools, and even educational consultants and advisors, and of course, our students. Thank you for joining us tonight. On behalf of CambriLearn, we thank you for being here. It's a privilege to host this dedicated session for everyone who wants to learn more about the Pearson Edexcel pathway. I'm Hugo Mendes, Specialist Education Advisor at CambriLearn. This session has been designed for anyone exploring Pearson Edexcel. What it is, how it works, how the assessment is structured, and what it means for a student's future academic prospects. So whether you're a parent exploring subject choices, a student considering the international GCSE or international A-levels, or a teacher or tutor supporting these families through this journey, or you're an educational advisor and you're looking to expand your knowledge on this curriculum option, tonight is for you. It's about giving you a clear, trusted information session and an interactive session where you can ask questions so that you can make confident decisions. And I'm very pleased and honored to have a representative from Pearson Edexcel join us directly, Marvin Owiti. He'll help us unpack the curriculum and explain the assessment standards straight from the source. Marvin, welcome. And could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role within Pearson?
Thank you, Hugo, for having me this evening. It's always a pleasure to have these types of sessions with educators, various stakeholders. My name is Marvin Owiti. I'm the head of business development for Sub-Saharan Africa for Pearson School Qualifications. I work with a team in the region, and basically our role is to support schools who would want to make decisions around curricula, and we particularly work with schools that would want to offer the British type of education. And so it's a pleasure to be here this evening to have this wonderful discussion.
Thank you so much, Marvin. So let's get into it. What exactly is Pearson Edexcel? It's important to understand exactly where Pearson Edexcel fits within the international education landscape, particularly for students who are planning further studies, either in their home country or abroad. So I have a few questions, Marvin. To ground us properly, could you explain to us exactly how Pearson Edexcel fits into this global education landscape?
Thank you, Hugo. That's a good question, a good point to start. Pearson Edexcel is the world's leading awarding body. Pearson Edexcel is part of Pearson, which is one of the world's largest education companies. We have a heritage of 150 years, and we are headquartered in the UK with a global presence in over 100 countries. And we represent a British aligned academic pathway that offer qualifications right from early years up to the A level, with the main exit qualifications being the international GCSEs and international A levels. Our qualifications are academically rigorous, designed by subject specialists and benchmarked against the UK standards. But what we do is to ensure that we adapt the UK standards for international learners, and we look at two main things: ensuring that the context is appropriate and the language is pitched between a native speaker of English and a non-native speaker of English. It is worth noting that Pearson Edexcel qualifications are regulated, and this is to ensure that we align to the strict standards and curriculum designs, assessment, and grading. And so when educators or families choose Pearson Edexcel, they're basically choosing a globally respected academic pathway that is designed for international students.
And so, Marvin, how do the IGCSE, the international GCSEs and the international A levels fit into the progression pathway towards university?
The international GCSEs basically serve as a foundation phase, and it caters for age 14 to 16. And the subject range is quite wide at national GCSE level. We've got over 37 subjects, and the international GCSE basically build subject knowledge, analytical skills, and exam techniques. So student at this stage would narrowly take a broader range of subjects, while international advanced levels are advanced university stage. And so they're also designed by our subject specialists and are studied for over 2 years, and they're widely accepted by universities for entry into the various degree programs. When students progress into A levels, they tend to choose a narrow or fewer subjects, usually at least a minimum of 3 subjects. And so this provides them an opportunity to focus on the core subjects that are aligned to some of the competitive fields like medicine, engineering, business, and law. And so because they focus on fewer subjects, so there is greater depth in terms of knowledge. And so universities tend to appreciate this. So in a nutshell, international GCSE builds the foundation, while A levels basically demonstrate readiness for university entry level.
And how widely, Marvin, are these qualifications recognized internationally, especially for families who are thinking of sending their children to go study abroad?
That's a very good question, Hugo. Recognition of qualifications is an essential um, ingredient. And so Pearson Edexcel qualifications are recognized by universities across the UK, Europe, North America, Australia, many parts of Asia, and Africa. In fact, we've published a list of universities on our website if anyone would want to look at that later on. And the reason why these qualifications are recognized is because we follow the British aligned academic structure, which is well understood by admission departments globally. And so universities are generally very familiar with our A-level grading standards and the subject depth. So what this means is that for internationally mobile families or students who may want to study outside their home country, this therefore provides the portability that one needs and is a big strength for the Pearson pathway. And so there's flexibility and mobility without necessarily compromising on the academic standards. And so parents can and stakeholders can be confident that they'll be able to access a wide range of universities globally. Thank you.
So, Marvin, let's maybe go a little bit deeper into the assessment standards and the academic rigor. So one of the biggest concerns parents have is about the standards of Pearson Edexcel. How rigorous are the exams? How are the grades determined? And the fairness maintained across these thousands of students who sit these exams globally every year. So let's unpack that. So let's break it down maybe step by step. Marvin, how are Pearson Edexcel exams designed to ensure fairness and consistency?
A very important question because I mean trust is everything on all things assessment. So just to walk the audience through the process. So Pearson Edexcel exams, we first begin by publishing specifications, what would otherwise be known in other quarters as a syllabus. So the specification basically outlines exactly what the students are expected to do and able to do. So once we've designed the specifications, the subject specialists look at the specifications and draft exam papers from our specifications. And then following that, our senior examiners would then review the content and then refine them, just to ensure that there's clarity and we avoid any bias, and there's an appropriate level of challenge within the exam, the question papers. And so the papers are checked with multiple stakeholders internally and externally to ensure that the assessment or exams that we provide align with the specifications assessment objectives. And so before the exams are finalized, they go through layers of review to ensure that it is balanced, fair, and just to also ensure that we can compare the difficulty with the previous years so that there's no particular year where there is significant variation. So that's the initial process in terms of setting the exams. After students sit the exams, then we also conduct an analysis post the marking, and we use statistics to do that. And we just ensure that the standards are maintained and are consistent over time. So within our processes, we've built in fairness. So fairness is not something that we basically react to. We consider that from the start.
Thanks, Marvin. And so once students have written these exams, what moderation or quality assurance processes are in place to ensure that the marking is accurate, consistent, so that the results will then be considered valid and reliable?
The marking of our exams is highly controlled and closely monitored. And this is just to ensure that the outcomes that students get reflect their ability. First, our examiners are not just randomly appointed. We ensure that we recruit qualified educators who go through training. And after going through training, they go through a standardization exercise and test that they must pass before they start marking the scripts. And during marking, our senior examiners monitor and sample the marking process and sample some of the work continuously. And so the whole idea of sampling the work is just to make sure that the examiners do not drift away from their agreed standards. And where there is a drift, it is usually corrected immediately. The scripts are also cross-checked. As I said, we have internal teams and external teams as well that cross-check just to ensure that there's consistencies. Soon after, once the marking is complete, then grade boundaries are set, and the grade boundaries are set using a combination of statistical evidence and senior examiner review. So we don't just guess grade boundaries. Grade boundaries are based on the data as we see it. And so really the goal is to ensure that the standards are maintained fairly across the various cohorts. So there's no particular series or year where one cohort has a significant variation in terms of consistency. So this layered process and system ensure that there's consistency regardless of where the students are across the globe. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So parents often want transparency. Even teachers, really, the educators who've prepared these students, they want to understand how exactly were the marks awarded. How does Pearson provide that visibility, that transparency?
Transparency is one of our key strengths as an organization, as Pearson. And we provided tools that gives sight of students' performance. One of these tools is what is popularly known as the Results Plus. The Results Plus is an online tool that allows schools to analyze the students' performance in detail. And so we don't just provide the detail about the final grades, but we break down and analyze the performance by topic and question type. And so this allows teachers to identify strengths and areas of improvement quite precisely. And I just need to add that we've embedded key skills that the students should be developing as they study. And so schools and stakeholders can check how their students are performing against the skills that are designed or weaved into the questions. Additionally, students can access copies of their mark scripts. This means that they can actually see how marks were awarded. So we provide free access to scripts. And so this promotes clarity, builds confidence in the fairness of the system. And so the provision of those tools, the Results Plus, and the free access to marked scripts provides a level of transparency that really helps to demystify the grading process and supports continuous improvement. And so one of the key things that we really provide as support are the free access to marked scripts, which is one of our key strengths.
Mm.
Thank you.
And Marvin, how should parents and students interpret their grades? What do these grades really indicate in terms of progression? Can you help just explain that?
Great, good question. Grades in the Pearson Edexcel qualifications are based on a criteria, and so we've designed a criteria for each grade levels. And so what this means that students are assessed against a defined performance standard, learner, and not against other students. And so when students get their international GCSE or A-level grades, it basically reflects, one, their subject knowledge. It reflects the application of concepts. It reflects their analytical ability and exam technique. And so strong international GCSE results then prepare students for A-level. And A-level are then usually used for gaining direct entry into universities. So when the students earn a particular grade, it carries a meaning, and it carries the meaning that I've alluded to a few minutes ago. So what stakeholders should see is that grades are not just letters, but basically are indicators of the readiness of the student to move to their next academic journey.
And then one of the distinguishing features of Pearson is this modular approach to assessment in many of your qualifications. How does that compare to the more traditional, perhaps the more familiar linear model? And what are its advantages?
Thank you, Hugo. So in a linear model, students would usually study for 2 years and sit all of the exams at the end of the 2 years. So that's for a linear model. In a modular model, the the assessment is divided into units, and students can sit the exams at different stages. Usually after completing a particular portion of the PEP of a subject. So how it works generally, if you look at a subject like international GCSE, the students can sit the international GCSE paper 1 at the end of year 10. Then they can sit for paper 2 at the end of year 11. What this means is that at the end of year 11, the grades for year 10 and the final grade at year 11 is combined for them to get a final score. And so the academic, what I need to emphasize is that the academic standard is similar, whether through linear or modular. What is different is the structure of assessment. And we arrived at providing options of linear and modular based on research. And we've come to learn, and our stakeholders have feedback, that modular assessment provides students, makes students to focus deeply on one unit at a time. It also helps to reduce the pressure of a single high-stake exam period. It also allows students to build confidence progressively. And in some cases, students can resit individual units rather than repeating the entire course. If you compare to linear, if a student failed a subject, they will need to resit the entire component again. But for a modular, they only resit the individual unit where they've passed. Educators also fed back to us and said, with modular, they can get midpoint data. So at the end of year 10, they're able to see the performance of the students in advance, and they can apply interventions before they sit their paper 2 or the second unit. It also then reduces cost. So for many learners, especially those balancing multiple commitments, modular assessment provides flexibility without lowering the rigor. It's about supporting performance and just not reducing the standards. And so we've provided flexibility and choice for students. So they have a choice between linear and modular. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Yes, I think you've really provided a lot of clarity around the design of Pearson Edexcel's assessment, its moderation, its transparency, and then the differences between modular and linear approaches. So that's really helped, I think, address many of the concerns that families have. And then how does CambriLearn offer this Pearson Edexcel? Let me just elaborate a little on that, if I may. So at CambriLearn, our role is to support this flexibility that Marvin's alluded to by means of high quality delivery of the Pearson Edexcel curriculum, in particular for families who require either pure online or a blended learning option. In other words, you want to go to one of our partner schools worldwide, or you want to go to a learning center and have form of traditional schooling, but still tech-enabled. So for many students and families, this flexibility is essential. It can be for subject availability. It can enable for self-paced reasons for you to be able to use our curriculum, and also for the mobile families, as has been mentioned, that portability. So what makes online supported Pearson Edexcel, as effective as it is when it's done with CambriLearn, is that the qualification itself remains exactly the same as you would sit at a traditional school. It's the same curriculum, same syllabus, same specification. You will sit the exact same final exams, and you'll have to meet the same assessment standards and marking standards. What changes is the flexibility of delivery. So through CambriLearn, students receive a structured teaching approach, subject specialist support, and continuous progress monitoring as enabled by a data analytics suite. And this enables highly focused exam preparation. The technology actually enhances real-life tracking and feedback, continuously ensuring students stay on pace and fully informed of their progress. So it's about delivering internationally recognized qualifications like Pearson Edexcel in a way that suits modern learners, modern schools, while maintaining full academic integrity and rigor. So I want to stress, academic integrity remains unchanged. You will sit the final qualifying exams under the same conditions as traditional schools. It's highly structured and highly guided learning. There is a lot of direction provided by both in-person and online instructors, subject specialist teachers. It's the flexibility brought by EdTech without compromising the standards of education. And it's real-time progress monitoring. The exam preparation is highly structured, highly focused. But time to now maybe debunk some of the common myths around Pearson Edexcel. Marvin, so I'd like to bring you in again because there's some frequently asked questions that show the fears and the concerns that some parents have about this qualification. So let's move on to some of the most frequently asked questions from parents and students who may be exploring this pathway. So Marvin, myth 1. Is Pearson Edexcel easier than other international curricula?
That's an interesting question. The Pearson Edexcel qualifications, as mentioned at the beginning, are aligned to the UK standards. And so Pearson Edexcel qualifications follow rigorous international benchmarks. Students are tested on understanding, application, and problem solving. It's not just about memorization. So the difference here is that the curriculum is designed to make learning clearer and more structured, which can then help students perform better. And so perhaps that's what may have been misinterpreted in the past. So we provide really clear learning structure. So really just to ensure that the students can are assessed and then can perform better out of those assessments.
Thanks, Marvin. Here's another myth, or let's dispel it. This concern about university recognition and acceptance of Pearson Edexcel certificates. Marvin, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So,
All right.
will universities accept these Pearson Edexcel qualifications?
Pearson Edexcel qualifications are designed for global portability, and students who successfully progressed to university in the UK, Europe, North America, and other regions. And admissions decisions usually depend on the overall academic performance, subject choices, and entry requirements. So it's not just the curriculum name, but they look at the actual performance of the students. And so we've seen case studies of students progressing into various universities in the regions that I've indicated, and that they've fed back and they've had an opportunity to pursue the career path that they wanted to pursue. So a key thing to note here is that the key factor that universities consider is the overall academic performance. And so we are confident and have seen that that working in various universities globally.
Thanks, Marvin. And then I happen to think one of the advantages, especially for distance learners of Pearson Edexcel, is the fact that the sciences, right up until A levels, do not require traditional labs. So physics, chemistry, and biology don't require lab exams. But then the question is, Marvin, are sciences then compromised without traditional labs?
Not really. Hugo, is a very important question, and it's an emerging area. And um, we're getting at a space where technology is quite advanced. And so things are changing from the traditional labs, and students still have the ability to learn scientific concepts through virtual labs, through simulations, structured experimental analysis. The goal here is usually to ensure that the conceptual mastery and application of scientific thinking, even when physical lab access is limited, is still developed. So students are still able to apply those skills even without the traditional labs. These students have gone ahead to progress into university and still pursue careers in sciences and succeeded.
Yes, thanks, Marvin. I mean, ultimately, this pathway is about giving students the choice of still completing rigorous, globally recognized qualifications, but in a way that fits the modern world, right? And the modern realities of learning and of remote work and remote learning. So thank you very much for that. And now, as promised, we're going to open it up to your questions. So Marvin's here to answer for Pearson specifically. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A box there. Parents, teachers, education advisors, students, please let us know what you would like us to clarify. We'll tackle as many as we can over the next few minutes. And please do not worry. If we do not get your questions tonight, the CambriLearn support team will follow up with you directly to answer your questions. So let's start with some of the questions we've had already posed. If my child does not attain proper grades when writing in Jan or June, so yes, I think that's something we haven't actually mentioned, Marvin, that the other difference is Pearson Edexcel at A levels actually examine 3 times a year, right? Not just in June and November. There's a January sitting as well. We actually hadn't covered that.
Yeah.
So thank you for the question. It's actually a good one. So yeah, so what happens basically, Marvin, they're asking, say you don't perform well in a particular paper in January, can you retake it on the next cycle? I presume they mean, can you wait a year? Can you write it the following Jan, or do you have to write it within the same calendar year?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the key things to be aware of is that, as you rightly said, Hugo, we have 3 exam series. You have an exam series in May, June, you have an exam series in October, November, and you have an exam series in January. So students can resit a paper when in the next available exam series, and most importantly, when they are ready for that assessment. So they don't have to resit within the year. And so that flexibility is key to note. And so they don't necessarily have to have started within the year, but they can sit it when they are ready, provided that they are working towards the university admission timelines. It's worth noting that usually good to check the subjects available in January and subjects available in October, November, because our main series is May, June. Then we have a range of subjects available in October, November, and for January. And January is largely for A level. So that provides an advantage for students as well.
Thank you very much. So related to that, Marvin, adding to that, is there a time limit between writing different modular exams? And here I want to, for example, use the idea of the A levels where, if you do the advanced subsidiary levels, Cambridge, for example, will state that you have to do the A levels in that same subject within 13 months of having passed the advanced subsidiary level. Now, are there time limits in the same way for the Pearson Edexcel modular exams between sittings?
Yeah, so we don't have the 13-month rule in our case. Students can resit, so we don't have a limit. So that's the answer for that. So they can
Oh.
sit the exams as many times as possible. What it's important to note is that we usually consider the best of the last two attempts. So let's say if a student has attempted a paper and got a grade B, and they feel that they can get a better grade in the second attempt, and let's say they got a grade C in the second attempt, and then maybe they feel like probably let me give another shot, and then they get a grade D in the third attempt. So we look at the best of the last two attempts. So we ignore the grade B. So usually we encourage teachers and tutors to just make sure that they're looking at the gaps and providing the interventions. But to answer the question there, we don't have a limit on how many times, on how long they can have their receipts.
Thanks very much. And then this is a question actually for CambriLearn to answer. What grades do we cater for Pearson Edexcel? So we start Pearson Edexcel at GCSE and A levels is where we end them. We do not offer the Pearson Edexcel I primary or I secondary. So the lower grades, we just offer that on the normal British International curriculum. But you can go from that into either the Cambridge International GCSEs or the Pearson International GCSEs. And in fact, I want to confirm here, Marvin, that you can even go from the Pearson International GCSEs and switch at that point to the A levels through Cambridge, or other way around. You can start with Cambridge International GCSEs and switch to the International A levels with Pearson. Am I right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. So one can switch from IG into another exam board, or vice versa. Yeah, so that's possible.
But I just want to add a caveat here because that's sometimes misinterpreted. We are getting quite technical here, but it's important, I think, Marvin.
Yeah.
You cannot do that at the international A levels if you've done the advanced subsidiary through one exam board. You cannot then complete the A levels through another exam board, or what used to be called the A2s. In other words, you can't do half a qualification through one board and half through the other. If you've begun the A levels through Pearson, you must complete through Pearson. And otherwise, if you've done it through Cambridge. Am I right, Marvin? I think maybe just
Yes. Yeah.
elaborate on
So,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's correct. One, primarily because one exam board is largely linear, and we are modular. And so when it comes to converting the modular grades and you mix the exam boards, then that becomes a challenge. So one of the key reasons is because of the structure of assessment, one being linear and the other being modular. Of course, there are technical details around it, but we encourage, as you've indicated, that students should complete on one exam board when it gets to A level. If they started Pearson A level, so they should complete on A level. They can't switch in between from AS to A2.
Okay, so we are running out of time, but I think this is quite a good question, and I'm going to pass it to you, Marvin. Does Pearson Edexcel offer the different topics for A-level maths as Cambridge do? You know, Cambridge offer various papers, mechanical maths and statistics and probability, for example. Is it similar for the Pearson Advanced Subsidiary and International A levels?
Yes, we do have different units. So we have pure pure maths, we have the mechanics, we have the decision maths, and so we allow. So how we structured our assessment for maths, so students can there's a rule of combination. So students, we have the compulsory units if they are going to pursue a particular type of a maths pathway. So we have the standard, the general, what I would call the A-level maths. Then there's the A-level further maths. And so students, we've given guidance on how students can then combine the units. And so, yes, we provide those different types of units to cater for the needs of the students. And we can share that detail when needed.
Thank you very much. I'll actually explain at the end how you can book an individual consultation for your child to ensure that you do pick the right units, not just for maths, but the correct subjects for your pathway for tertiary. I do have an interesting question here. Perhaps they didn't quite understand the awarding body here. So Marvin, final question before we
Yeah.
close the floor. Who issues the final qualification? So, for example, the International A-level certificate, who actually issues that?
So it is the exam board. So Pearson Edexcel is the exam board, and we provide the content in terms of the specifications, stroke syllabus. We provide the exams, and then we mark it, and we then award a qualification at the end of it. That's why we are called an awarding body. So it's Pearson Edexcel that then provides the final certificate. Or of course, I mentioned we work with our regulators before we get to that point.
Of course, you work with Ofqual, I know, quite closely.
Yes, yes.
But I
Yeah.
think that actually was important, Marvin, because sometimes people think that the school that delivers the curriculum and prepares you for the exams, like CambriLearn, is somehow the one that's going to issue the certificate. Not at all. It doesn't matter which school you're at, whether it's a physical school, an online school like CambriLearn, or the hybrid, the mix of both. In all cases, the qualification is issued by the exam board, which you sat, for whose exams you sat. So Pearson Edexcel, in this case, it's never issued by the school. The school does not award the qualification or the certificate. Pearson Edexcel does. So I think that's quite important. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Marvin. I think, yeah, we're actually finished now. And I see that our client support is answering some other questions that have come in, but we do need to wrap up. So let's do that. Thank you for having presented and shared your knowledge and answered those tough questions, Marvin. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. These education decisions are significant and clarity is important. It's powerful. So if you're considering the Pearson Edexcel pathway for your child, your next steps are simple. You will see 2 QR codes on your screen right now. Scan the QR code with a yellow border. That will enable you to book a one-on-one consultation, as I mentioned before, for guidance on the Pearson Edexcel pathway to help you with subject choices and what to do next to begin your journey with CambriLearn. Download our Pearson Edexcel info pack for free using that QR code as well. And you can also visit the Pearson Edexcel website to learn more. Please follow us on social media to stay up to date on the latest educational news, tips, and upcoming webinars. There will be more. And then you can also scan the QR code with a purple border. That's to discover the real Pearson Edexcel student success stories. See what's possible with this internationally recognized curriculum. Be inspired by the journeys of students who have progressed on to global opportunities. We are very proud to be partnered with Pearson to support your child's academic journey, and we look forward to supporting them towards a globally recognized future. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, Marvin.
Thank you.